Quick rules correction, and this is actually what causes these ground turns to take so long or whatever, is because I come in and then I want to describe everything that's happened. I'm going to do that again. The Portuguese have gone off to handle their rebellion, and the Spanish have set off with Columbus and a whole pile to go for a circumnavigation, grabbing and exploring La Plata. They have a conquistador with them. They have 2 explorers, a missionary. They're going to just try to grab whatever they can and, pick up Luzon. They're allowed to actually, so this was something I was wrong about, they're allowed to stay at sea at the end of a turn. An explorer, a conquistador, they can stay out in the wilds. They don't have to retreat, which is big. It means that this city wasn't really, or this colony wasn't really necessary. The other, and then they're building up their forces and moving into position to face France. But when I looked at the Turks, I said, I remember the withdrawal from combat being plausible. And I looked and I found it, and it works more or less as you expect. You compare the maneuver values and make a roll to try to get an 8. The real question here is, this Mamluk army just can't stand out there. So they're going to have to break the siege and give the point if they can get out of there. We'll see if they can. The Mamluks actually managed the first withdrawal, but then they got attacked again in Syria, and their army's all conscript, so they said, well, I don't want to face this. The higher tech, I'm going to lose here. Ooh, I forgot to move my Orthodox forward at the end of the tech phase. And their army was almost entirely wiped out. They had, I don't know, I think it was 74 units. They lost 71 of them. They've got 3 cav left. The firepower phase broke their morale. Big roll rolled. And then a 10 rolled on the pursuit, which was 40% of the Turkish force done in casualties. It pretty much almost wiped them out. I should touch on what the Mamluk surrender rules are, just because if Damascus or Egypt is gone and they haven't fought in a battle with their army, doesn't matter whether won or lost or whatever, they surrender. So even if Damascus falls this turn, they're not in trouble. If both of them fall, they surrender. When they surrender, it's everything. All their provinces fall and would become Turkish. In addition, the center of trade is going to move to Smyrna, and it causes all kind of problems for Venice. End of 2 rounds here, and what do we see? Spanish opened up some sieges down here and up here. They got driven off, but Foix, I believe, we got Bayard down here, the world's greatest knight, was killed in the battle. And lifting the siege is made up for by his death. His death is a significant enough event. If you lose a named leader, that's worth a point in the peace, essentially. So that kind of neutralizes it out, even though the French got a victory point for it. The French siege of Milan continues. The Turks have pushed down deeper, while the Mamluks are kind of reorganizing there. They may have to come out and fight again. English pushing down. Columbus has found this is the Cape Horn, according to this one. And, well, they've got some kind of ugly trip to make, but as long as they don't go down here, oh no, they have to. Yeah, they have to cross that space. So that one's the big expensive one with a +2 modifier. It's kind of hard to see because this line cuts here and it looks like, there's no ocean there. But no, it indicates that it covers the entire map and comes over to this side. Cabral has slipped around this way. He left Da Gama back here to quell that revolt instead, so that he can do the exploration and maybe, even institute Goa without having to really worry about it. It would be nice to have Da Gama with him, but just had too many things to do. The Spaniards lost their conquistador down here, but they still have a couple of explorers. So basically, here's the thing. Columbus may die en route, but they've got a pretty good one in Pinzon to continue it. So as long as he doesn't die due to an exploration event, it should be okay. All right, another round done. On to round 4 and end here. The French-Spanish War. Well, the French got knocked out of Milan again, although the losses were heavier on the Habsburgs. The Habsburgs tried to set up a siege here of Nines, and Bayard left Italy and went and joined up with the large army, which he had to do, attacked there, and actually dissolved the entire Habsburg army. However, they're kind of ignoring the Spaniards here. Columbus is continuing with his expedition. Cabral with his, but he's down to like 1 ship, I think, so he had better go back. He may not make it. He may still have 2, I'm not sure. The English lost Cabot, but continued mapping Africa. Over here, the Turks, well, they succeeded in taking Judea. And there was sort of a question, hey, did the Mamluks want to try to slip through? But they don't have the movement points. 2, 3, actually they do. I think they want to make this attack, try to cut off the supply here. Of course, no, there's supply coming from here, so it really isn't going to make much difference. The only thing that would make a difference is the fact that they wouldn't be losing Syria, which puts, once they lose Syria, puts kind of an onus on them. So I think they're going to launch that attack. Now, leave it as it is. The problem there, of course, being, well, the Turks can just march down the coast and get supply from the fleet. With Cairo open, they could take that instead, and that would be just as good for them, really. Alright. Another round down, not much happening. The Spanish, though, they made it out here. No losses to leaders, but they're down to 2 ships. It's real risky. Real risky. They've got a lot of exploration to do to make it there. Turning back's not terribly safe either, though, but they've got more of a chance of doing that. I'm not sure which way it's going to go there. Cabral did make it back, and now he can stock up another fleet, set out, try to pick up the Gama. Actually, well, he's got the troops he wants to take with him. There's a reason for having troops with him where he's going, so that's kind of desirable. The Spanish, General Cordoba, who's been here since the beginning, damn near. Very good general, 444 across the board. Faces Bayard. Now, Cordoba finally has the technology to face the French, and he manages to really drill them, and they're in bad shape now. So the Spaniards may kind of want a long turn, because if they have a long turn, they might be able to capture more than 1 territory, which of course will affect the peace chances significantly, and mean that if France surrenders, it'll be a more painful situation for them. The Habsburgs are pretty much wiped out, though, we know. The Turks moved into Samaria now, and the Mamluks kind of just holding back. They don't have to fight this round. They can wait until next round. Cutting off supply looked like an interesting idea, but they'd have had to run by a chance of an interception that might have been terrible, and then Egypt would have been open. As it is, they're playing it safer. Turkey's playing it safer. Venice isn't too thrilled because they're probably going to lose their big victory point gamble. And that's the end of the game turn. One final round went. The French launched one final attack with Bayard, and Christendom's most perfect knight was captured. The entire French army destroyed. Pretty much equalizing. There's a 1 point difference between the France and Spain at this point. So Spain has an army, France doesn't. Will Spain accept a white peace at this point? Or do they feel that they can grind on and hurt France some more? Spain has a lot of things to do with their money. France doesn't. So it's very likely that Spain will accept a peace. If they don't, well, it's possible that France could still knock the Habsburgs out. through a peace alliance agreement and be able to at least devote their entire attention to Spain. They may not want to do that, though. They might prefer the full peace because they don't have an army. Over here, well, the Turks are going to have a problem. They're going to have to withdraw from here, and that'll give a point to the Mamluks for this. Not that this is going to be resolved by peace. The Knights are still at full force there, so that's probably going to be a problem. And oh, somebody's picking on the Venetians. Horrible. Okay. But yeah, other than that, what do we got? We got the Columbus came home. Now he's going to die at this turn. This is the third turn. That's the last turn that he goes. So he shows back up next turn as a different leader, Solis. It was just too risky. He had 2 boats, actually, but, you know, making a circumnavigation with just 2 boats left seemed too dangerous. Not very Magellan-like. I guess that's about it for now. I'll come back after I resolve the pieces. Here at the end of 3 turns, move this up. These leaders get placed in their country. Bayard goes back to France. There was a white peace between Spain and France, which gives them a bump in stability. They both, well, actually, Spain invested. France did not, because of Spanish troops in their home country made that too risky an attempt. You can end up hurting your stability that way. Spain failed. Turkey put a big $100 investment, got up to +3, but they dropped back down to +1 because of the ongoing war. Those become a real burden as you go further and further. So they really want to finish wars quickly. And that's, you know, why Spain and France kind of gave up. They're back at the starting line, basically. Spain had a slight edge. France had an edge in terms of victory points. Their choices were a Spanish surrender, which wasn't going to happen, or the white peace, which is fine for both of them, really. They're both happy with that. The defeat of the French army kind of guaranteed that things weren't going to be good. Victory points, for whatever that matters, Portugal's at 79 now. And most of the others in the teens, Spain at 19 in second. Turkey has made their way back up to -1. Their successes this turn made up for some of their failures last turn. But you've got to get out of, you know, a war as soon as you can, because they just drain you. Dropping your stability means you're not going to generate as many points. On this next turn, we're going to see the Latins get another advance in tech. Now they're still not up against the wall because the Portuguese are holding the door closed, and so they probably won't be crossing it next turn. It's possible, I think. Let me think real carefully. Yes, because if Portugal jumps over it, it'll actually depress the counter by a space. So it will be possible for the Latin miners to get to gunpowder. And that was really what killed the Habsburgs. Not the Spaniards, but the Habsburgs this turn. They don't have guns. The difference between medieval and Renaissance is huge. Now, one thing you're going to be noticing, as you know, from the details here, and this is just a factor of the game, combat doesn't necessarily buy you much. If you can go pick on a little tiny power, if you can go, you know, and Venice was kind of thinking about this, schwack the papacy, take a couple of provinces from them, you can gain a lot. But this is really where Russia has its problem. It's got no big deal with these guys. These are independent remnants of the Golden Horde, basically. They're easy enough to kill. They have like one little unit or whatever. This thing is really hard to gain any ground on. Same reason if you tried to look at, if the Turks tried to make a legitimate peace against the Mamluks, it would be really hard. And that's one of the things that's kind of troubling about the game, is those miners are really, really tough to beat. To tell you the truth, so are the other major powers. You really can't win wars against them either. But you're not expected to, for the most part, right? This is the map that remained in Europe until the Dutch Revolt. And then after that, things didn't move. Things were very, very fluid in the Netherlands for a while. But after they settled down into basically what it ends up, being, this is the Netherlands, this is the Spanish Netherlands, that's really hard to budge, right? And that lasts until the Spanish succession. No major shifts, but there were some in some areas. The Swedish expansion, major shift. That can happen because Sweden's a minor power, and the 30 Years' War kind of grants them some of that. The Turkish capture of Hungary, major. Well, there's special rules to cover that, like there are with the Mamluks, okay? There's nothing too special that's going to handle Poland except for the decay of Poland. But the truth of the matter is Russia actually made some significant gains against the Poles at a point when Poland wasn't at its height, but to some extent that was why Poland collapsed, why they retrenched and left the position of strength that they were in, was the nobles lost faith in the crown, essentially. They were able to grab more power due to the weakening of the crown. And I don't see that as happening very often in this game. I've seen Poland actually expand in this game, capturing some of the Turkish territories, sweeping down into the Crimea. And those are things they'll never lose because they're not covered by the events that caused the decay of Poland. In fact, some of the things that they historically lose to Russia, they'll never lose. So I've actually seen Poland end the game, still in the game, divided into 3 pieces because the events that eat out their heart just kind of happen. Real disappointment. Maybe the Aristo events will fix that, I hope. Portuguese didn't manage, they managed to sail out here, but they didn't manage to get anywhere with there because the round ended. That's $10 they spent that they didn't need to, but that's okay. One thing that I forgot to handle before this, Portugal's been exporting slaves all this time. That gives them a bonus for a monopoly. That gives them some extra victory points. They've been getting 1 victory point a turn, but this turn they've actually exported 6. That gives them 3 victory points. And you could say, wait a minute, there's some others making it here. Okay. Those don't actually count. The fixed slaves, nobody's actually exporting them. They're just kind of drifting in. Consider them as immigrant labor. No. I'm never quite sure what to do about the spices and the products of the Orient. Those you could take away. Certainly these guys were taken away, and I would say they have to be. I'm not so sure Ormuz. Well, if you set up a trading post there, you can take them away that way. Otherwise, Persia's exporting them. So, to really legitimately get those monopolies, I think you do have to knock them down. All right. I'm going to leave this revolt here for another turn because the Habsburgs didn't get rid of it. It'll go away as long as they're neutral. Got some new leaders to place, and this is going up, I guess. Oh. See, the Venetians lost their fleet. The Turks lost a big hunk of their fleet, but because they had their trading fleet, because they had a fleet in place, it's not going to be the whole thing. We'll see what that does to the income, etc. I don't think the Turks are going to grow in income until they take the Mamluks out. Although it's hard to tell because they keep losing pashas. They lost another one this turn, but I don't think that's going to make up for things. Although it might, because I think their stability went up. We'll see.